first thing I do is accidentally kick the camera tripod. So it is our Monday drawing stream. Let me just bring this up on my laptop so I can see if anyone comes into chat and whatnot. There we go. And try and get this a little adjusted so it's a little more close up on the drawing. There we go. So, I think that's not too bad. We've got Myles from last week. He's dressed up as Elvis, the king, doing some karate kicks, and we had this little bit. And I said, well, this week we're going to find out what he's looking at. Well, he is doing battle. Oh, it's kind of visible. This is a non-photo blue pencil underdrawing, so it's a little hard to see because that's kind of the idea, but he is doing battle with this knight. So what are we inking today? We are inking the knight. I'm using a dip pen with a, it's Speedball Super Black India ink. And I've got a variety of nibs of kind of, you know, these little guys. And we'll be switching throughout. And this particular nib gives very fine lines, but sometimes it wants to give me trouble and not have the steadiest of lines. It's great for sketching, but, you know. Anyways, so this project is actually inspired by another YouTuber, Struthless, ages ago now. Doesn't seem that long ago, but I guess it was a few years ago. He had this challenge called the Alphabet Superset Challenge. I'm just here trying to line up between the two, since this will be a spread. Anyways, the idea with the Superset Challenge was you pick the art project, whatever you're working on, but you would then sort of pick sub-themes every week that started with whichever letter of the alphabet. So I had started this project with Myles. At that point, I think I barely had figured out his name. He was just kind of like a margin dude from one of my sketchbooks. True Oak General Contracting, hello, and Bentley P1W, hello to you as well. So, like I was saying with Myles, I had been doing him kind of in the margins of one of my sketchbooks, and there is a sketchbook tour somewhere on my channel. It's the Bono Mouse sketchbook. It's a weird story, but I tell it in that video. But anyways, I wanted to get back into traditional cartooning. I love the nails, by the way. Thank you. Kind of realized a couple weeks ago, it's like, well, if I'm going to be doing these live streams, I should probably like make my cuticles less awful looking and put some polish on because my hands are on camera now. I didn't used to have to care, but yeah, try and keep them looking sort of presentable. So yeah, with Myles, I had been doing my my other comic, which I've done some inking for in streams on this channel recently, is Noah's Archipelago, and the main comic for that I do on my iPad. I kind of missed doing these sort of more tactile, kind of cartooning, traditional. This is not exactly traditional comics process, but it's pretty close. So anyways, I was starting to do some other sketchbook type of work and whatnot, but I thought, well, you know, it'd be kind of nice to do an actual proper graphic novel with Myles and test working with a dip pen again, because I hadn't done that for quite some time. So this kind of evolved from that. Is a rat, what is his name? The knight we don't know. He's kind of an unknown assailant. This little dude is Myles. and he's been the subject of some of my Monday streams lately. And I guess technically speaking, Myles is half mouse, half rat. He originally was going to be entirely mouse, and then I have a different comic project, Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. And at first I was going to keep them separate, and I thought that's kind of weird that you'd have, one universe with rats and one with mice, and they would drawn in very similar style, and you're not going to bring them together. So anyways, I had to figure out a way to make it all gel. So Miles's mom is a rat and his dad is a mouse, and he was raised amongst the mice, but he now lives amongst the rats. It's a whole convoluted world building kind of a thing. Yeah, so at the alphabet superset, I kind of used that because at first I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it or with Myles. I was like, well, we'll just kind of improvise, and it kind of mutated into what I'm calling Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness. So each of these spreads kind of has a different take, and I kind of randomly brainstorm letters, and it ended up kind of I keep saying kind of. The first several of them ended up having quite a theme where on the one side we would have Myles doing something mundane like eating his lunch or filing at his job or whatever, and then the right side of the page would be his what he'd rather be doing. So it ended up being called The Pursuit of Happiness. And then it's kind of evolved into a bit of a Miles's fantasy life type of thing. And I think in the end, I will end up doing a bit of a spoof of, the kids' books that end up with that kind of, A is for, B is for. So it'd be like that, but in Miles's case, it's going to be K is for dressed up like the king, kicking a knight on a castle keep or whatever. And I'm going to come up with some sort of really ridiculous little bit of poetry rhyme to go in between the pages so it all makes sense. Or doesn't make sense, but is entertaining, as the case may be. So we're just kind of duplicating the far background hills. And I usually with anything with a dip pen. Now, this bottle of Speedball ink, can't really tip it to show the logo or else we're going to have the whole desk be black. But I'm noticing it's a little thinner than some of my previous bottles of Speedball have been, and it also does seem to dry quicker. The drying quicker is, a bonus, but I normally try and work top left down to bottom right, but you'll see I kind of bounce back and forth quite a bit as well. So we'll come back to the background after, but I wanted to at least have that to define the outline of our night mouse, most nights' ears and whatnot. I'm going to switch nibs because I've got one of these fatter ones that I know tends to be a little, I don't really have it in this particular piece, but it ends up being fluffy, probably isn't the right word. Or is it something else? Is what something else? I guess I should ask if my sound is coming through. I think it is, but one never knows. And I am listening on my laptop I'm watching it on my laptop so I can see the chat. But if I turn that on, then I'll probably get feedback or something. So, or a weird echo. Maybe I should do that momentarily. Nah. Actually, I should do that momentarily. Oh, okay. I heard it. I do have sound. Good. Always a little paranoid with this wireless mic. So, This nib probably needs to be cleaned up. It's probably a little clogged, which in some ways is frustrating, but then for stuff like this kind of a plume, it actually works pretty well. Something just came up on. Interesting. The chat, when I lift my head up and look at my phone, because I'm streaming from my phone, the chat is slower than it is on the laptop, but just tells me look at the laptop. So we got a bit of that fluffy kind of look. In the end, I'll end up coming around and putting a thicker outline with one of these nibs, because that's what I had done here. It makes them stand out a little bit more. But we are going to, I'm going to go back to the other nib, because I want to show, for the armor, I think I'm going to end up doing kind of more crosshatchy kind of texture. So just throw that nib into, got like 3 bowls of water here. So in various stages of darkness now. Now, getting something to look shiny with a dip pen is a little more challenging than in some other mediums. So I'm envisioning that this helmet is, it is protecting the knight's ears, which is going to be kind of a challenge because they're going to be big ears. How long have I been doing this for? This character, 2023, I think. And this project, this book I started in, I think, September of 2023, but then I've been sidetracked. So it's, I've only been back at it for a month or so now. But Myles does make appearances in a different project that I have, which is Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat, which I'm working on a graphic novel for that as well. And that's why I've been started working on inking that on my Friday night stream. But that the graphic novel for Ricky has been ongoing also since 2023. And that was actually before I determined that Ricky and Myles know each other. So Myles is not going to be in that book. Probably be in future books. And the way I decided to bring them together is because Myles is half rat, half mouse. His rat mother is the aunt of Ricky's girlfriend. Which, I mean, hey, that's kind of how it works sometimes, that you hang out with people who are related to your significant other or whatnot. And if you meant how long have I been doing this in terms of cartooning, I have, I always had like weird little doodle characters that I would put in my notebooks and whatnot. So I'll be going back to the early 90s. And I had a web comic that I used to do in the MySpace era called Zommel the Destroyer. So 2006 to 2009-ish. And that, I think, was my first like proper web comic kind of project. Kind of liking this parallel lines version better than the cross-hatched version in the ear, but I don't have correction fluid on hand right now, so I'll either fix it later or I'll Photoshop it and fix it later, because I can always trace that ear and then do just the simple lines for shading and Photoshop them together. had the idea that even the whiskers would be encased in armor. Hello, Apollon, and hello, Scarlet Dragon. How's it going? Today we are working on Myles, who is Scarlet Dragon was in on my last stream when I was working on Ricky. So this is a spread involving Ricky's girlfriend's half-mouse cousin Myles, who is this guy, and an unknown assailant dressed up as a knight. Could be one of Myles's dreams or daydreams, or who knows, maybe he just has a really hellish commute, eh? I'm doing pretty good. I'm sure some people would be like, oh, the knight represents the knight in shining armor. It's the self that Myles could be if he got control of his anger issues. It's like, yeah, or maybe it's a weird psycho dude with a set of armor. Oh, nice. I gotta get back into doing some sewing myself. Well, I guess the most recent sewing type activity I've done was, when you buy a jacket and they have the pockets sewn shut. So I was doing that with the tiny little seam ripper, trying to get that out. I understand why they do it. It makes it easier to sew it, but also, once I buy the jacket, I would like to be able to put my keys into it. So I need the pockets open. It'd kind of be nice if they came already opened, but oh well. Okay. We will definitely be fixing that ear. In fact, should make a little note in the border so I don't forget. Trying to make a moth sweater based on this Acropia moth. Very cool. An art instructor once who made the comment, we had one time our homework, I don't have a sewing minute. Oh, so you gotta do it all by hand. Ouch. Yeah, I was gonna say is I had a class once, drawing class, where the homework was literally draw like 10 circles without thinking about it, but also notice whether you draw them this way or whether you draw them this way. It's like one of them is going to feel more comfortable. That's the direction you should always draw. And then you have something like this, which for me is like backwards to that, and it does feel weird. Oh well. Just gotta concentrate more on the wrong direction stuff. Of course, then other times I'm able to draw quote unquote backwards and it's fine. But all in the day, I guess. Because they're mice or rats, we of course have to have the cheese emblem. Even though supposedly they don't actually really go for cheese. Although, I just know anytime my dad has had to bait traps, they definitely. Oh, you're going to want to find that needle before you go to bed, eh? Sometimes the best. I was taught by a friend of mine ages ago who did a lot of quilting. She said the best purchase she ever made was to go to a hardware store and there's like little extendable wands that have a magnet on the end. It's just like, they work so well for finding needles. And I must admit, I don't use it very often, but the rare time I do lose a needle, it work really well. I'd rather find it on the wand than, my foot or anything. Hello, Anne. Do we have a drawing? Yeah. It's been ages since at some point, I'm sure I watched some like YouTube video about heraldry symbols and whatnot. I can't remember offhand if the one crown would mean this guy's claiming descent from a king or just works for the king or whatnot. But then I think all knights kind of back in the day did, well, they're supposed to work for the king. Some of them didn't, of course. Some of them went rogue, but. Do you have a streaming schedule? Sort of, in a loose sort of way. I try and come on Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific to work on something having to do with Myles, at least until I get this book done, illustration wise. After that point, I might still be kind of nice to keep working on Myles stuff, but it might be sort of more Myles and Ricky because I have another book idea with both of them. And then Friday is the Ricky stuff. I was doing some Noah's Archipelago bonus cartoons a couple weeks before last. And then Tuesdays is the sort of original stream I started in January, but that is not finished work. That is like brainstorming, like sketchbook markers with a bunch of my different characters, and kind of don't know what I'm going to draw until basically when I hit the live button. Last week it ended up being Myles, Ricky's nephew Marvin, and then Ursula from Noah's Archipelago, all pretending to be superheroes. The week before, it was if they all ran away and joined or formed their own circus. I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow with it. But I had done some stuff in January where it was like Ursula and Ricky are in search of like their cartoon universe's ripoff of Chuck E. Cheese, which I'm calling Cheesy Rats. So that was like one time was brainstorming the mascot design, the costume, the logo. And then there was another where they've gone to find this mythical place. And anyways, I actually am kind of thinking I might break that out into a graphic novel at some point, but I'd want to get the Myles book done and new and improved Itchy from Itchy and Scratchy show. Yeah. Oh, those clips were always so funny. They're one of my favorite things in The Simpsons. Anyways, so for the streaming schedule, it's basically Monday, Tuesday, Friday. I've kind of debated starting to do one on Thursdays at 6, but I wouldn't be able to do it every Thursday. But what's kind of fun is it does keep me moving forward with stuff, as opposed to kind of getting sidetracked. And then, well, it's like this book for Myles should have been done a long time ago, and then whoops, accidentally kicked my tripod. And then your artwork is amazing. Well, thank you, nickname unauthorized. That's very sweet. Really appreciate it. It's always nice to kind of, I know I like my work, but it's hard to know whether I just have bad taste, So it's nice to hear when other people enjoy it too. After all, it's kind of part of the whole thing with putting your art out there is hopefully someone else will get a chuckle out of it, a smile or whatever. So otherwise, just do it in your sketchbook and keep it to yourself kind of thing. So thank you. But yeah, with the streaming schedule, it's possible by the summer I may have like a Noah's Archipelago specific one, but we'll see. I have a writers group that meets on certain Thursday nights, so that might make it a little tough. But as I was blue lining this, I was trying to think, well, of course the mouse knight is going to want to have armor on his tail, but what's that going to look like? So it's kind of segmented and jointed, but it's a little weird. Looks like from an old storybook. It's just, oh, yeah. Well, some of those old storybooks, some of those illustrators are amazing. There's one book, I'm going to forget the title now, but it was an illustrated Greek and Roman mythology book that I used to get out of the library all the time when I was a little kid. And it just had like simple line drawings, but they were beautiful. And years later, like I think when I was in my, 20s, maybe even my 30s, I found a copy of it at, a thrift store, and I was like, oh, I have to get this, Not that I even look through it that much, but it's like, okay, now if I want to look through it, I have it on my shelf. So, and part of me wants to jump down to working on the stone wall, but I really know I should work up here and come down and do the wall blocks last. So now I have to think how jointed. It's one of those things where you have to stop and go, okay, so section of armor, section of armor, section of armor. Also knowing too when I'm, drawing certain facial expressions or whatnot, I just make the face in the mirror and go, oh yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like. So then his fingers again. Yeah. This knight has very big hands for a mouse, but granted, they're also in a metal casing glove, so and that's gonna kind of be a bit of a fake it till you make it. He's got the pommel of the lance, and we'll just kind of make that all black. I have to put the other piece down to line up. So I do have, because this is going to be a full bleed spread, I have drawn this little outline. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it kind of shows up on camera, which is going to be kind of the trim zone. So you kind of just want these to continue because when they get squished up, now that's going to be the part of the book that, in the gutter, but you want it to be kind of close. So. And then my plan for this is probably to do print on demand through Amazon whenever it's done, and we all know how that goes. It'll get printed off, Hopefully not, but actually the writers group, before I was a part of it, they had done an anthology of short romance stories for Valentine's one year they had for sale, and the first batch of like 100 copies or something, Amazon printed the insides upside down. And it was like right before the book launch. There was nothing they could do about it. Just have to tell people, I'm sorry, this is backwards and upside down. Thank you. Yeah, loads of time spent doodling when I probably should have been paying attention in math class. But math, you get an accountant to do your taxes and you don't really need it that much. Well, I should use math more often, but I use my drawing and doodling skills like multiple times a day. Right, for a soap opera. Oh, look. Cool. That would be an interesting assignment. I mean, I guess it's kind of, I was going to say, in some ways, a little bit similar to sitcom writing in the sense that the characters sort of tend to, I'm talking on my ass because it's been ages since I've watched soap operas, but that the characters in some ways are supposed to, not so much, not change isn't quite the word, but stay stable, maybe. I know. Well, I learned to write, but I don't know if what I write is good enough. You know what? It's wherever you start, you just keep practicing, and in 10 years, no matter what you write, how good it is, how bad, you're going to look back on stuff you wrote now and cringe, but by then you'll be so much better, it doesn't matter, right? Like we've got, in the writers group, we've got some people who are very, very new writers. Hard keeping ideas going fresh. Yeah, exactly. Like my mom used to watch Young and the Restless a lot when I was a kid, and my like grandma watched a lot of like Young and the Restless and General Hospital, a lot of them, and that was something I kind of remember. That was like, oh, this is they already did this plot with, no, Bob and Jane or whoever. It's like, well, yeah, but then at the same time, if you go too out of the box, then it gets, people are like, oh, this isn't believable at all. So it's definitely, I think, I get the impression it's a bit of a catch-22 kind of, but that does force you to certainly be more creative, right? Oh, right, for Days of Our Lives. Yeah, that one I know my grandma used to watch as well. I think time-wise it didn't work for my mom and her work schedule, but she was able to often catch Young and the Restless. And then we go to VCR, and then it was like, I remember having to help mom figure out how to program the VCR to tape Young and the Restless, and half the time she wouldn't have time to watch them anyways. I guess the other thing too is you guys must have like a show Bible type of thing, right? Because with a show like that one's been on for so long that there's, massive amounts of lore, right? So I'm sure that must come into play too, like figuring out that you don't do something that completely contradicts something that happened in the story already, or at least that you then have to explain it, right? Yeah. Submit them to a writer so you and the writer get endorsements. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even with my stuff for a graphic novel I'm working on, like, I'm kind of like, I probably should sit down one Saturday and like just, yeah, I use Scrivener sometimes, but like make the equivalent of a show Bible to sort of nail down, like, okay, Miles's siblings' names are, and it's like I have a post-it note with that somewhere on my desk, but hopefully it didn't get thrown out in the recycling. Otherwise, I have to like go back through pages and try and find where I've written that down, and yeah. Like for my webcomic, Noah's Archipelago, I now started doing like a weekly Noah's Diary thing that I post on Tuesdays. So I now have like in Scrivener a document where it's like, who are Noah's bandmates? What day of the week does his daughter have ballet and all that? Oh yeah. Yeah, and then when we do it all digitally, right, we just end up with the laptop equivalent of that. Like, okay, which of these files named script ideas? I swear, like the in-laptop search on my MacBook is not as good as it was a few years ago. They screwed something up with the updates, because be like, okay, I know I have a scan of something that's called page 46 for the graphic novel. It does not come up. And then when I finally went and found it, it's like, that's the exact file name. Why didn't it come up in search? Certain traits. Well, and I think sometimes just, now, of course, if you're like doing art or something that's ink that's kind of a pain in the butt to change, it can kind of matter a little bit more. But a lot of that's just the more you're writing and drawing, that stuff becomes obvious. Like with Miles, I mean, he's dressed up as an Elvis impersonator. When I started him, I had no idea he was an Elvis impersonator. It actually came through working on this book. And then it's kind of made it a bit of a running joke, although he also likes people to not know that he does that. Oh, worst is writer's block, yeah. The morning pages thing from The Artist's Way is like so helpful. Not even with that now, but like as like a mental insurance policy, because I know somewhere I have like 5 no, more than that, like 6 or 7 books of morning pages where I'll be like in the midst of, I need to pick up cheddar cheese at the store today and I need to fuel up my car and pay my hydro bill. They'll also be like, okay, so what if Noah blah 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 blah, so I know there's a bunch of ideas in there where I'll have to go and at some point just go through. I think the first couple books actually went through and I like drew a red dot next to every idea and I put like one of those like post-it flags. Not that I like categorized it, just there's something on this page. If I run into a block, open the book, flip through to any random thing and look for the red dots. But I haven't had time to actually go and do that in more recent writer or morning pages books. But I know that they're in there at least. So it's kind of like, because I think sometimes block even just comes from anxiety about like, I'll never have another idea again. Well, that's a good way to make it feel that way, right? Yes. Oh, yeah. Right. Because you also, that, and then of course, never mind the FCC, all the hardcore fans would be like, she wouldn't actually say that. She wouldn't actually do that. Or you'd have to explain why why such and such change happens. Yeah. It's kind of like the difference between doing cover songs and your own originals is your own original song. It can go however you like, but if you mess up the words to satisfaction, people are going to notice. Or if you invent your own. All right, now we can move on to the blocks. But I'm going to get a fatter nib again, and we're going to do some outlines first. Sort of pretend like that will keep it from completely gumming up on me. I think what I did last week is a really big fat guy. Yep. No nudity, swears, minimum supervision, yeah. Yeah, parental supervision should be more of a thing. And I say that as somebody who, because my mom worked shift work and stuff, and I also, I mean, certainly in the summer, got to spend way too much time in front of the TV. And then if I was sick, legitimately sick, or just in the I don't feel like going to school kind of sick, I watched way too much Donahue and Oprah as a kid, and I remember when Jerry Springer wasn't just about fist fights, when he was trying to be like an intellectual kind of daytime TV. But yeah, there was all that sort of stuff. Soap operas too. There's a lot of stuff that's questionable on daytime TV. I don't know if it's worse now or better or what, but. Yeah. Not that I can blame daytime TV for everything, because I also used to listen to Motley Crue when I was like 6 or 7. Most of the lyrics, I had no idea what the hell they were talking about, but still. Like that first Guns N' Roses album came out when I was like 9, I think. It's like, oh, all I knew was some of the songs like, okay, you just have to make sure mom doesn't find this tape or I'm going to be grounded for the rest of my life. Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of one of the ways that we keep things like jerk in the English language. Because adults just say asshole, right? But kids and daytime TV have to say jerk and stuff like that, which is always kind of fun. Or you hear somebody say darn it. Yeah. Okay. So now we are back to not the small nib, but the medium size. Oh no. Oh. Thread, needles. It's all vanishing. I would sort of say this is why it's helpful sometimes to sew with obnoxiously eye-melting color, but then if you sew with a lot of obnoxious eye-melting color, eventually everything in your house becomes obnoxious eye-melting color, and then when you lose the thread, it doesn't help because it still blends in. Okay, there. Oh, good. But yeah, like I said, have a look at, probably be at, your local hardware store would have one of those little like magnetic wand things. You can probably get like a 5-pack of them on Amazon for $10 or something, but that's probably too many. But they are super helpful, at least for the needles. Obviously, don't help with the thread unless the thing's already threaded. But yeah. Trying to figure, is that the right? Yeah, I think that's the nib I used last week. And if it's not, well, then the Masons just made the grout lines a little too big on this one. On this side. Bright red. Oh, so it doesn't blend in. Yeah, but I think sometimes, I don't know, the brain is kind of just like ignores that, Especially because once you've been sewing with it, it's like you kind of like, your brain is now used to the red, so it doesn't stick out as much. I don't know. We have weird brains. Yeah. I think what I'm going to do, because I have actually two pins, because I want to do the kind of the squiggles for texturing, but that's with a smaller nib, but I'm going to kind of work back and forth in thirds. So I'll just sort of switch that out, and then I got 2 pins on the go. I gotta go to work tomorrow. Well, work is a necessity, unfortunately. Just leave that one in that water and fish the other nib out. Fortunately, obviously I'm not going to get these super fine lines to really line up, but hey, the good thing is that's stuck in the middle of the gutter of the book, so oh well. And I eventually have the whole book drawn and ready to go. Part of that's going to be scanning in, and I can always, in Photoshop, just add a couple lines going through to fudge it to make it really blend. And then that one was going to be a particularly dark block. There we go. Don't feel like it, yeah. Well, it's kind of, I think most people really don't feel like it, you know. Hey, even sometimes, even when it's your hobbies or whatnot, it's kind of like, I don't feel like painting today, or I don't feel like whatever in today. But still haven't decided what next week's Myles spread is going to be. Sometimes what I end up doing is I actually have on my phone, because I'm partly Irish in extraction, but I do not speak the language, but I have delusions of grandeur that someday I will. So I have like a English-Irish dictionary app on my phone, and it's pretty abbreviated versus, a standard English dictionary. So I'll like just go browse and pick out words, make a list, and then find a theme in there. So I guess that'll be my task for Saturday evening. Go look at the book and decide what Myles is going to do for L. Eating soup. For S, yeah, that could definitely be one when we get to S. Mind you, I guess there's lentil soup, right? So figure out something maybe that starts with an L. As I'm drawing this, we're in the season of Lent, but Myles does not seem like the sort of dude who gives anything up, you know. So that probably wouldn't work. Plus, who knows? The book might be getting put out in, well, it won't be this July, but next July or September or whatever. So, his dad's name is Larry, so could be hanging out with his old man Larry, but. And then he's got a brother who's Larry Jr., so we'll see. It's another one of those ones where kind of usually I don't plan ahead, or even sometimes if I do, like I had originally thought, oh yeah, kayak. We'll draw Myles kayaking, and then came up with the idea with the kicking a knight type of thing. I'm like, okay, that's better than him in a kayak. I think. But so it kind of always ends up being eating Larry's. I think like I had written a short story for my writers group, did like a Christmas anthology in not this past Christmas, before that, so 2024. And my story actually starts out where he's at having Christmas Eve dinner at his dad's place, and sort of commenting that unfortunately it was one of the rare times when Larry decides he's going to cook, but Larry really can't cook worth a damn. So he's like, well, I forget the exact phrasing now, but it was basically he chokes down what Larry's cooking, knowing that he's going over to visit his mom. And then he's going to his Aunt Karen's house before getting dragged to church for Christmas. So he's like, well, at least Aunt Karen will have good grub. Fill up there. So yeah, Larry trying to make soup would actually be kind of hilarious. I mean, Larry knows how to grill, you know. You can do caveman food, but beyond that, it gets very difficult to avoid ruining things. Make it out of Larry. I don't know. See, if he makes it out of Larry, if it's Larry Sr., well, I guess he'd get his inheritance, but his older brother, Larry Jr., would take over the estate, and that might be, annoying. If it's Larry Jr., well, that would cause his own problems. Side of Larry Jr. I don't know. I'm like, see, the thing is, Myles is quite monetarily driven, but Larry is a businessman, so it might be more in Miles's interest to have Larry Senior live a long, long life and keep building up that family fortune. Plus, then when Myles loses his temper and gets arrested for throwing the knight off the tower here, he needs Larry to bail him out. Either one of them. Time for another really dark brick. I'm like looking at the screen to see how the thing looks, but there's a delay, so when I darken up the bricks, I have to wait. Well, that's gonna darken them. This one, anyways. Up a little bit so it's not completely down in the bottom corner. And time for the other nib again. The fun things with this project is because with each of the letter sections, I kind of don't plan in advance. Well, at least not beyond a couple days, what I'm going to do. It's kind of like forcing me to be a little bit more spontaneous in what I'm doing. You know, they talk about with writing that there's kind of, and when it comes to plotting your story, that there's the pantsers, you know, by the seat of your pants, and then there's the plotters who work everything out in advance before they even actually write the story, like, or they kind of have it in point form, outline and whatnot. I tend to write the story first and then do the art. So it's kind of fun being having this little assignment where I make myself do the exact opposite and then try and figure out a story after the fact. Well, and sometimes the not planning at all works because it allows you to make like free associations and stuff, like where it just goes off in like really interesting, weird, unplanned directions. Um, like sometimes, for example, the short stories they do for like Ricky, I have certain short stories where I think I've like written it down and then I realize I go into Scrivener and realize I haven't written a damn thing down, but it's all in my head. Like there's actually a story that involves Ricky and Baby going on a double date with Myles and this girl Daisy. And I thought I had written down at least an outline of it because I have it in my head, but no, there is nothing written down for that story. So I probably should sit down and write it. But it's like a kind of think about the story over and over in that case, and then it kind of develops, and at some point it's like, I should sit down and write this down. But sometimes I find even where I had it plotted out, it's like once I start typing, if something kind of better comes into mind, like I think it's really important to run with that. Because sometimes it takes it in completely different directions. And then you may have to go back and sort of like make it make sense by, you know, putting down like breadcrumb, you know, hints and foreshadowing and whatnot for how it actually ends up and insert that earlier in the story so it makes sense. But the other thing too is got ideas but not really planned. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes in the actual sitting down and writing it out, you let the idea breathe, you know. Because I know there is, like, I don't write romance. I don't think I'm good at it. But there was a point where I was like, you know, getting greedy. It's like, well, you know, the romance novels, they sell really well. Blah 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 blah. I should write, and I came up with a plot for one that I thought would actually be interesting and not, you know, it had a formula, but it wasn't like to me, it was more interesting to me as somebody who doesn't read the genre. It's like, oh, this would be one where I would find this interesting, whatnot. But then by the time I plotted it out, is like I don't feel like sitting down and actually writing the book now. I have the story. I made the story in the outline, I've never gotten down to actually sit and write and like type it up because now that feels boring because I already know what's going to happen. So, but then like that graphic novel that I'm working on Fridays with Ricky and Baby, like I mean, when I actually wrote the short story, I had no idea really where it was going. Uh, by the time I finished, like, what they call the vomit draft, where you just sit down and you write for 2 or 3 hours, like in an afternoon, you get the rough down, right? Um, that it ended up ending in a different manner than I anticipated it ending. But I think it was better and funnier. Um, so, but then anyways, I usually let it go like that. But then, like for Noah's Archipelago and the little plot lines and stuff, um, I I've started plotting out more, because I'm doing like 4 web comics a week, and they're just 4 panels, right? So, um, trying to keep them from like kind of just droning on. I've started writing the script out in general, but I'm not that far out. Like I have the plots and dialogues written through till about March 10th, I think. So, and then after that, I have the current plot line with cheesy rats is going to lead into um, like a St. Patrick's leprechaun hunting kind of little thing for mid-March, and then after that, I have no idea. Other than it's probably about time I had a plot involving Ursula's brothers, because we haven't really done much with them for a while. But um, so that I find it keeps me focused. Plus, I used to sometimes have ideas for bigger story arcs, and then I'd get sidetracked or something, and then I'd get behind on it, and then I'd just kind of like abandon them halfway, or just like do a really lazy kind of wrap up and move on. And it's like, okay, it'd be better to, in that case, I want the plots out. But then when I start writing the plots, finish part of this for awesome. Every time, like, I mean, I haven't really been sewing much or knitting lately, but I do remember it's like, oh, when you get that section, one section where it's like, okay, this block, whether it's a sleeve or neckband or whatever, like it's a milestone for sure, eh? Old shirts and stuff. Well, you know what? Sometimes the random old shirts and fabrics have better fabric than the new stuff. One of the fun things with going thrifting is like finding stuff that's like actually decent quality. You know, um, I've noticed certainly in the last even 5 years, but definitely in the last 15, 15 years or so, there was like it happened. I seem to remember it at like going shopping at when I used to live in Richmond at Richmond Center. It was almost like within a week, suddenly all like the quality had just nosedived. Like we used to have a Forever 21 that I would shop in. It used to be most stuff there was like cotton or whatever, or they'd at least be cotton blend, and then like, or if they were polyester, it'd be like a satin or something that was like a nicer polyester, and then just suddenly one day everything was like that scratchy polyester that feels like old grocery bags, and the prices hadn't gone down. But and then other stores in the mall also, it's like the memo went out. It's like, hey, let's have poorer quality and keep the prices the same. But so yeah, the older stuff. Oh, that's like that's always my favorite thing to find is like old leather suede jackets and stuff like that. It's like the best. Uh, I've gotten a few actually that way. And sometimes what's my other favorite one? I actually went thrifting today because I was running some errands down in Victoria, and managed to find two different like cotton velvets, like the velveteen blazers, one in like hot pink and one in black. And I was like, oh, most velvets now are definitely the polyester. So, but yeah, some days you just get super lucky. I did see a bunch of leather jackets today, but none in my size. Plus, it's kind of like, because I have a few now, it's kind of like, well, it needs to be, an interesting color and a this and a that. And, otherwise I don't bother. But it's always nice to find the really good, especially because, I mean, like a leather jacket, you probably have that for like 20, 30 years. So, like, they're they last a long, long time. Whereas, like the pleather or, the fake leather, very often, I mean, you can sometimes get fake leather that's good quality and lasts, but some of it is just awful. A friend years ago, and it's like a rock kind of a dude. So like he had like a pair of black leather pants that he'd gotten, and then he'd had them for like 15 years at this point, and in the 15 years he'd become vegan, so he didn't buy any new leather. But one day he's like, "Oh, I want a black leather jacket, but obviously I don't want real black. I don't want to hurt animals or whatever." So he hadn't been able to find a decent like fake leather jacket thrifting. So he actually sprung, and he hated spending money. So but he spent like $125 on one that was supposed to be good quality vegan leather, and it like started to peel after like two wears. He was so furious, and I was just like, dude, if you go thrifting anyways, just get an actual leather jacket thrifting. That animal's been dead for a long time, but he didn't want to buy anything even new to him, even if it wasn't really new, if it was leather. So I was like, well, that's your choice. But it's probably going to mean that it's going to fall apart faster. Even like purses and stuff, like years ago when I still lived in Vancouver, I did get a lot of like even like faux leather purses thrifting, and they used to be better quality faux leather. Now, you know, I find, and I don't know whether it's just the good quality synthetic leather gets grabbed so fast, but I never seem to find good quality stuff. So I always will look for actual leather purses, and sometimes it's just like, well, then you're going to end up having to get it on eBay and pay a lot for it, or you end up having to buy new, which kind of sucks. But yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, that's why I had said to him, I was like, well, just go to Value Village or Sally Ann or whatever and keep an eye out for leather jackets because that's something they do have regularly. You know, eventually you would find one. And then like it's not like you paid for new leather. So like in terms of his concerns on that level, that wasn't going to be a problem. But then you would have the quality, right? But oh well. Now let's fatten up the lines between the plates on this guy and the outline. Kind of looks like he's wearing metal undies. I'm pretty sure this is not the way that suits of armor handle uh, the kind of groin areas, but I think it would be the breastplate comes down and then, yeah. But that's how we're drawing it, so whatever. Why are we not moving so much? There we go. I think I've said it several streams in a row, but this, yeah, I really do need to break out the pen cleaner because it is definitely kind of clogged up. You know what? Technically, I mean, you got a pattern in the sense that you're gonna wear it, right? So you can sort of put it on or hold it up and go like, okay, I need to bring it in here, or put uh, what are they called, gores or godettes or whatever to open it up here. So I mean, patterns help to a certain extent, but also, especially commercial patterns, some of them are instruction wise are terrible and are super confusing. Because I know there was I think the top is still in pieces. I actually don't think I finished it yet, but there was one I was making like a peasant top ages ago out of like eyelet cotton, and I remember the instructions were so vague. Um, like it wasn't in terms of listing what piece to use or whatever, but there was like some sewing term. I was like, I don't even know what that means. I had to like Google it, and fortunately, somebody I think had made like a here's how you do blah blah blah. Um, but yeah, some of them are really terrible for instructions. Really, I mean, you kind of sometimes the intuitive approach works the best. This knight actually kind of is starting to almost look like a bit like a chick or has a very fat butt. But yeah, that could be why the knight is fighting with Myles, I guess. types of fabric. Depends who you ask. I mean, lots of commercial clothes are made with multiple types of fabric. Worst case scenario, you may have to hand wash in cold water, and then line dry. Because usually the issue with mixing fabrics would be like if you had something and you like one of the fabrics you could throw in the dryer and the other one would shrink if you did that. That's usually because you end up with a few different shrinkage rates and all that. Hi, little Mickey, Micah. Hope I pronounced that right. Thank you. But yeah, Scarlett, like I think, especially if you're gonna like hand wash or whatever, you should be fine. I mean, like I've heard before, people say that a lot of times, unless you're dealing with something that's like 100% wool or whatnot, where it does, where you don't want or silk sometimes, but even silk and wool you can hand wash. But a lot of times the things that say dry clean only, it's because they've got like the lining is nylon or polyester or something, and then the body of the garment is cotton or wool or whatnot. And they're going to shrink at different rates. So sometimes they just say dry clean only because of that. But most things you can actually wash at home by hand. So let's kind of have a look at the two of these together. I think we is pretty much done for this spread anyways. So yeah, I'll just kind of pull them through. So that's what I did in the last Monday stream with Myles, and then got the sort of lining up in the middle, which you may have to fudge a little bit in Photoshop when all is said and done. And then we got the night. And I think we are gonna spend about almost an hour and a half. So, and this drawing I think is pretty much done. So I'm gonna call it at that point. And yeah, next week I will be doing another spread from this Myles's Pursuit of Happiness book, or his bizarre daydream life, depending whether we're taking this as he wanted to kickbox the night as part of his happiness thing, or whether this is just like one of his neuroses showing up or whatever. Even I don't know. But we will be working on the spread for L next week. So thank you all for watching and hanging out with me and chatting and all that. And yeah, good luck with, have fun with that sweater, Scarlett. And again, thanks, little Mickey Micah, for popping in. And everybody else who's been watching. And I will see you, well, I was going to say next Monday, but next Monday for this project, I will be streaming again tomorrow for my marker sketch brainstorming little cartoon sketch. And that's also at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then Friday we'll be inking from Ricky B. Rad again. So this guy's, I'm pointing at something off screen, this guy's cousin's boyfriend's graphic novel I'm working on. So yeah, thank y'all, and see you again real soon. Bye for now.